Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. I am Brother Kareem Allah Muhammad, the representative of Allah in the person of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I am of his Messiah, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Once again, I greet you in the words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. As usual, time is always of the essence, so we're going to move very swiftly. Part 2 today in this message of what we covered several weeks ago, dealing with the imminent attack on the domestic life. Part 2. Now, we know with the rise, according to scripture, of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to the pinnacle of success which Allah promised, or the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Allah promised that he would reach in this world. Well, this world, the rulers of this darkened world will not let that go unmatched. So we expect an imminent attack on the domestic life. And this is part of the reason why I am here before you. Now, to this day, the Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah, Prophet Muhammad of 1400 years ago, those enemies of Islam to this day brings up his domestic life to attack Islam. Now, there are 4 general controversial aspects of the domestic life of Prophet Muhammad. And as we had said and reiterated from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, scriptures are being fulfilled today. The prophecies written of in both the Holy Quran and the Bible are being fulfilled today. These indeed are books of law, but they're books of what we should expect to occur at the end of this world. So they're not history books, because archaeologists today struggle to find any shred of evidence that there was an ark that Noah got on and that the earth was drowned or filled with water and many people drowned. There's no archaeological evidence that even supports that the Red Sea parted and the Pharaoh and his army was destroyed by water. These are all prophetic depictions of what would occur in the last day. And it took the coming of God in the person of Master Fard Muhammad to teach the meaning of the book in the Bible to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which he has imparted those meanings to us. Now, many people who preach Holy Quran and many people who preach the Bible, their take on things come from the evil people who run this world, the synagogue of Satan. And this is why both religions have not been able to overcome evil today. And as we can see in the work of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he in fact is giving life to the dead, and evil is being overturned in a way that most people that are of sound mind and body cannot refute. You have to be just dead as a doornail in order to deny it. And some people are just that. So the polygamous marriages that have offered the enemies of Islam to attack Prophet Muhammad was generally his polygamous marriage, that he was married to as many as 9 women. That of itself created controversy. The other aspect is his marriage to Aisha, who was a young girl when she was taken in marriage. Then you have Maria, who is an Egyptian woman who was given to him by the king. Some say, Islamic so-called scholars say, she was given to him as a slave. Some say she was given to him as a wife. Yet and still, Prophet Muhammad, being a white man, and by all of what history records of Maria, that she was a black Egyptian. So that, of course, offered a lot of controversy in the fact that she bore him a son, Ibrahim, and he died before somewhere about 2 years of age. A lot of controversy surrounding the death of Ibrahim. There's even some inclination that there was some evil doing, which really caused Prophet Muhammad great grief. But we'll take up that point at another time. Also, his marriage to Zaynab, who was previously married to Zayd. He had arranged that marriage, Zayd and Zaynab. But then when that marriage broke apart, he took Zaynab as a wife. So those are three controversial marriages which bear heavily on the defense of the domestic life of the Messiah. So we will be covering aspects of those, inshallah, in weeks to come, to draw the parallel and to beat back the satanic forces who are now arraying their forces to attack the domestic life of the Messiah. So we're going to continue with where we are and the events that we saw occur on 10/10/15 and the week thereafter. So in the last message, I mentioned Mark, a passage in Mark that talked about how in other words, the synagogue of Satan, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the chief priests were getting ready to attack Jesus. I said somewhere else in Mark that they wanted to also kill Lazarus because Lazarus was proof that the Messiah is effective in his teaching and raising people, or Lazarus to life, that he has in him from God the power to raise the dead to life. So they needed to discard him, Jesus, as well as Lazarus. But I made an error, or a mistake rather, in saying that it was from Mark when it was from John, the book of John. So in John 12, verses 9 and 15, or 9 to 11, we read, "Much of the Jews therefore knew that he was there, and they came not for only Jesus' sake, but that they might see Lazarus also, whom he had raised from the dead. But the chief priests consulted that they might put Lazarus also to death, because that by reason of him many of the Jews went away and believed on Jesus." So the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the work of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, in part a crescendo, if you would, of 10/10/15, the solutions being offered to help this country, which is on the chopping block, the United States of America, the divine chopping block, but also the solutions for humanity coming up out of mental and spiritual death were conveyed. That truth was conveyed, very deep, rich, and succinctly by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on 10/10/15, and then even the week after. So now many highly placed people of the Caucasian race who want to see this country survive at least the extension of judgment. As he said, you have a narrow window to gain an extension of time. So there are some extension of time in terms of the judgment. So there are some, people that have interest in maintaining, and keeping themselves alive, afloat, for whatever words we want to use. But then there are others who want to just take the whole ship down. If it's going to be this way, then damn it, everything can go down. You have white people who think like that in high places, and you have white people that are saying, wait a minute, here's a man from God who's offering us an olive branch or a way out. Let's take it. So those two are right now on the battlefield. Now, so later on in John, it continues beginning with verse 12, John 12, chapter 12, and beginning with verse 12. On the next day, much people that were come to the feast, when they heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem, which is again styled as Washington, D.C., took branches of palm trees and went forth to meet him and cried, Hosanna. This is the Palm Sunday that people celebrate the week before so-called Easter. They continue, blessed is the King of Israel that cometh in the name of the Lord. They recognize that. Verse 14, and Jesus, when he had found a young ass, sat thereon as it is written, quote, fear not, daughter of Zion. Behold, thy king cometh, sitting on an ass's colt. The Pharisees therefore said among themselves, perceive ye how ye prevail nothing? Behold, the world has gone after him. So they're in a fix. Now, just offer a few explanations on what these verses, one or two of the meaning of these verses. Well, that's the event that we saw take place. Hosanna, Hosanna. And as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, you know, what caused people who were once saying about Jesus, Hosanna, Hosanna, to now holler, crucify him, crucify him. Something happened. And this is what we're dealing with. What they have planned to make you and everyone else begin to say, crucify him, but they did not bank on Allah, preparing someone to throw a monkey wrench into the vehicle of the monkeys. And this is what we have going on as we deliver these messages by the grace of Allah. Now, an ass is considered a donkey, not a very, well, a mule is really the dumb animal, so they say. But, you know, a donkey is considered of the low level type of animal that, you know, you would not, you don't find anything good looking about a donkey. But the donkey, the ass, has a colt. So as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in 1010, that we have the youth here and the youth is everything. So the meaning of Jesus beforehand telling his disciples when they went out, bring back, you know, the colt and the ass, I think was both of them. Well, now the colt is that young, uncastrated, you know, breed that is a, you know, a colt rises up to be a horse. So the colt is considered the youth, you know, in simple terms. And this is what Jesus came riding on. It was the youth through 10:10:15, the youth through the things that happened, you know, around this country dealing with the attack on black people that rose up and began to push this agenda forward. And they will continue to do so. Now, we're going to put a period in that part because, again, if we look at this book, and the only way we should look at it is prophecy being fulfilled. Not some preacher talking about he walked on water and all the other things that you were not there to even see. And once again, your slave master taught you this, but you don't want to let go for whatever reason. But we're going to peel your hands off these lies so that you can latch on to the truth, hopefully, and become a proponent of what is true and real, and not a legacy of lies that's written in the legacy of our sojourn here in America. So that's the fulfillment. Now, taking place right before our eyes. We're making history by the grace of Allah. Now, the defense of the domestic life of the Messiah. You know, everyone is of the domestic life of the Messiah. What do you mean, Brother Kareem? Well, let me read first from the preface of this book. Rather, before that, let me just say this. We know that living in the world of Satan has made young girls and women pray. And we know that many black men are a part of that atrocity taking place because we don't respect women. We don't respect young girls. So now young girls are being preyed upon and being made into sexual trafficking objects. And it's getting worse. Girls are turning up missing in our communities because there's no father in the house who really cares about his children, because we produce children and we're made to not take care of them. Again, to let the government do their due while we continue to, as black men and other men, to impregnate one after the other. And the ones who don't get abortions, which are by the millions every year, or somewhere close to that. I'm not sure if it's 1 million every year, but there are great numbers of abortions taking place in this country. Another, to make it short, women are abused, preyed upon, and oppressed and destroyed. And most men participate in that, particularly here in America and all over the world. Marriage brings on itself a different level of respect. If we would look at a woman that we're interested in as a potential wife, what would that solve in terms of how we view women? I mean, even before you think about laying up with a woman and vice versa, if that thought was able to come into our minds, what change would that overcome? That I don't see her as, boobs and butt and a good time for a few moments, and then I'm out of the door. And if she gets pregnant, I'm wondering if somebody else is responsible for that child. If we had the thought that she looks as though she's a woman that we could make things happen in life together, I could take her as a wife, that alone would change a lot of what we're suffering today. But we don't have that forethought. We have a thought of abuse, exploitation, and on both sides, but mainly upon men to women, or from men upon women. And vice versa, young woman and young girl, if you looked at a man or, a young man, hopefully not a boy, as a potential spouse, then you would be apprehensive about giving yourself over to any kind of man. So to get rid of the girlfriends and boyfriends, and even more than that, to get rid of, I just want a good time sexually, by replacing it with serious thinking about marriage, then that would, eliminate a lot of what we're suffering today. And many of you can agree with that. We just need to adopt that thought. So in this book, The Defense of the Domestic Life of the Messiah, we cover polygamy and aspects of how it should be handled properly, because we're going to see that as an antidote to overcome what has happened in the decimation of the black man in America in particular, and of men in general. Now I'm going to cover more of that because there's a lot that comes with that. And I know, some women may not be, may not take too kindly to what I'm saying, but God has offered a solution, and he has given us a pattern of how we can effectively, seriously look into polygamy as an antidote. But it has to be done seriously. And this text will help accomplish that. So for the sake of just learning about it, because you may see it in your life, you should invest in knowing how it is properly perceived by Allah and how it is to be implemented when that time comes in your life or the lives of those you know. So I want to read from the preface of this book, make a few points, and then we're going to continue on. We're dealing with the defense of the domestic life. Now, this is one of 3 volumes. So this 3-volume series was written over a 17-year period and subsequently reflects my growth and understanding about the domestic life in the fulfillment of the messianic prophecies described in the Bible and Holy Quran. Let me pause here. See, again, God is no respecter of persons, and my little upset he listens to, but again, I have a tombstone waiting for me. So there's a whole plan that Allah has in place that goes beyond your and my individual lifespans. So when we start looking at the broader picture of how we elevate humanity, beginning with the elevation of the independent black people of America, independent in God's eyes, dependent because we right now have an enemy that forces us to be that way, and we have not yet caught up to the idea that Allah has for us as an independent nation, although we're despised and rejected as a people and treated like we're independent, that we don't belong to anybody, but we have leaders among us who want to kick through the door and make us part of some other people. But God doesn't want that to happen, and that is not happening, and those who we are kicking down the door to be a part of don't want it to happen either. So we have to solve the problems ourselves, but God has given us the Messiah and also knowledge and wisdom to help govern that process. So in other words, you may be uptight about it, I may be uptight about it, but it don't really mean a hill of beans to God himself, because we know that the exploitation of women that you don't know anything about in your government corporate jobs. You pull up in your Mercedes and whatever you want to do in your church and play church for a few moments of the day, but all of our people aren't like that. Many of our young girls in the inner cities and other places are just tremendously exploited, and we're driving down the street looking at this. Maybe most of us are unaware of it, but God isn't. So he don't care what many of the highfalutin people among us think. We have to solve this problem ourselves, and we're not going to do it with the enemy that put us in this condition. We're going to do it based on God's guidance through the understanding of the Holy Quran and the guidance of the Messiah. And that will happen. Now, let me finish reading some of the preface so you'll understand aspects of why this book was written. This 3-volume series covers a spectrum of knowledge that conveys fundamental and advanced aspects of the domestic life. Again, in the context of the fulfillment of the prophecies, which culminate in the establishment of Allah's eternal kingdom. For readers, some aspects may be more understandable and readily plausible, while others may be more challenging. Nonetheless, the readers will be extremely blessed by merely considering the knowledge presented in this book. In 1998, I began writing about the domestic life to capture the thoughts that I knew Allah was revealing to me about this subject. Through his guidance, I became more deeply aware of how the Messiah's domestic life fulfills many aspects of the lives of Jesus, Prophet Muhammad, and other major prophets, as described in the Bible and in the Holy Quran. This is not my personal discovery. This fact is born of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which is the foundation of this 3-volume series. Now, I think by now most of you who may have been confused about me and about what this book represents, you're beginning to see that those who have said otherwise are just straight up lying. But most of them won't come clean and say, we made a mistake, because a haughty spirit goes before a fall. We could talk about that a little later. We talk about atonement, but how many people are willing to really truly say my bad or my bad, whichever way you want to say it? Most people don't do that. They like to keep the lies going, but they'll be going pretty soon, because God has determined to get rid of all liars. So that nice golden carriage is about to turn into a pumpkin for many people. My initial aim was to defend the domestic life of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. Contemporary history has long proved that the most violent attacks against these men have been against their personal lives and the motives behind their persistent labor among us to deliver the message of truth that Allah commissioned them to do. So in other words, what rouses people emotion to bring somebody's family into this great drama built upon lies or misinformation. So now, if you find that this great celebrity was not acting right by his wife, now you don't like him, but you don't have all the facts. So they use people's personal lives and the struggles we all have in our personal lives to pour evil upon us or to defame us. You know what I'm talking about. I don't need to explain everything in detail. We just need to know when that happens, how we should respond. Again, we want all actual facts, and we know none of it is coming from the so-called Barbie dolls in front of us, which is the face of the news media. They are there because they want to use good looks to sell lies. And I'm going to keep reiterating that point that I made before, particularly for men who may want to believe that because you like the 6 o'clock news because the woman who is on there talking as a news anchor. Now, as most people know, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan have been maligned by the satanic leaders of this world. We know this. The enemies of Allah have continuously spoken evil against them, as well as just outright lied upon them, just straight up lie. Because they think that people are dumb enough to fall for any lie. They don't even have to sugarcoat lies anymore, because they believe that they have dumbed the people down that much that if we're looking at something blue, they could say, no, that's not blue, that's green. And we will question our eyesight before we question them being liars. And that's a damn shame. So we have some waking up to do. And it begins with just knowing who your mortal enemy is and not being afraid to say it. We have a history of 400 years that shows that the synagogue of Satan and the white people generally of this nation have not been our friends, and to this day are not our friends. Did I say something wrong? So, despite its opposition to Allah and the Messiah, the synagogue of Satan is neither the center of the domestic life nor the focus of the defense. In fact, they are becoming permanent casualties because of the domestic life. The defense, in part, assists in this grand and long overdue achievement, the complete removal of the satanic world. Now, as time progressed, my aim included showing how the domestic life is essential, again, in establishing Allah's eternal kingdom on earth. That is the root of the domestic life. So I wanted to read a little bit of the preface because I've been pointing us to that and just wanted to show, again, the value and the motive. Now, in Savior's Day 2014 held in Detroit, the theme was, how strong is your foundation, can we survive? That theme is also mentioned in Study Guide 18, where the Elijah Muhammad had that same theme. How strong is your foundation, can we survive? And tied to the domestic life. So it's, ironic that was the theme of Savior's Day Convention 2014 that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan addressed in Detroit. That is the same time that I met with him that Friday, February the 23rd. The major address was Sunday, I met with him Friday, February 21st, and the major address was 2 days later on the 23rd. The day before that was the laborers meeting where my name was mentioned as, writing on his domestic life. And as I told some people before I left my home here in Delaware, I had already had a meeting established. I just had to call and just get the time. So I was not a laborer to be at a laborers meeting. I knew why he brought my name up, but again, God know how we are. Negativity helps us to retain things. But when truth comes and we are able to make sense that the negativity was for a positive thing, then we're supposed to act accordingly. Anyway, I'm not going to spend too much time on that because I already have covered that part. But anyway, in that meeting with some of the research team, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talked about his ascension to the mother plane in September 17th, 1985, in the More Than a Vision experience, where he communed with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, not in person, but in, through the voice. And he, covers that in detail in a press release that is, again, you can visit Final Call or thenationofislam.org and pull down that press release of the announcement. Now, in that meeting, of course, and other times, he revealed something of what his concern was when he was before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the way he was before him, and that there was some concern about his domestic life. Now, I'm not going to go into any details, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, when he conveyed what his concern was, he told us at that meeting what his concern was. I'm not going to say that, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad retorted in a somewhat, I wouldn't say frustrated, but I may be antsy. I'm not sure what the proper word is, but, I didn't bring you up here for that. Then he went on, and I'm going to paraphrase, that is a sign of what is on the other side. Most Muslims know about those words. Well, what is the other side? If the domestic life of the Messiah is a sign of it. So this text comes in a preparatory way to help us prepare for how we resolve the imbalances in the most effective way possible, with knowledge, and not to, go all the way down in a lowly way, which some people have done, and which we still continue to do. Many of us. God requires us to respect the institution of marriage and to respect each other. That's the only way we come out of this kind of condition. So I wanted to just make that note again here. Now, as I said in last week's message, dealing with the trouble that Malcolm X experienced, we want to go more into that. So I'm going to show a clip of his a little later on. Now, Malcolm used the term teenage secretaries to talk about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's domestic life. And if you want to revisit the previous message, there's a nice clip on his trying to establish the number of wives and the number of children before the Caucasian man. And what kills me, the Caucasian man says, well, how many teenage sisters were involved? I'm like, come on, teenage sisters? Like, you don't even deserve to even use that term. But anyway, he went to the enemy, and I guess he took the liberty of using teenage sisters as if he's part of the black nation. Well, I want to read something dealing with that aspect of teenage secretaries. And it comes from chapter 8 of this book titled Protection, Aid, and Comfort. That's the title of the chapter. Because the wives of the Messiah do provide protection. How? They do aid him. How? And they do provide comfort, not only for him, but also for one another and for the believing community. This is why the wives of the Messiah are called mothers of the faithful, or mothers of the faith. That chapter deals with those three specific aspects. But I also, in this chapter, by the grace of Allah, address this whole idea of teenage secretaries. So we're going to do a little bit of reading. Let us consider the words that some of Allah's enemies use to describe the wives of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Malcolm X referred to his wives as teenage secretaries, and other opponents joined in his course. They falsely charged the Honorable Elijah Muhammad with taking advantage of those who worked closely with him. The opponents failed to mention the deplorable state of the black people of America, that is, lacking the knowledge of self and kind, before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad began teaching us the truth about ourselves and of God. So, period here, before you start saying who a man is taking advantage of, look at the Reformation that he brought about among people that white people call jigaboos, Negroes, niggers, coon and shines. They didn't establish the MGT. They didn't clean up brothers from prison. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad did that. So how can a man who cleaned us up now be a vile man? These are some of the questions that we need to think about. But if we just, afraid, scaredy cats, little sissies, and we don't want to stand up against our mortal enemy, then we deserve to be taken down in Allah's wrath. Now, again, how is it possible that the same man who gave people spiritual life, hope, and purpose would take advantage of them? This is ridiculous in every sense of the word. Despite Malcolm X's attack against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, only a few people left the Nation of Islam to support him. Malcolm had just one or two people with him. So somebody interviewed me a few years ago talking about, there was a great split when Malcolm X left, similar to this split that Master Farrakhan Muhammad, when he left, those who did not want to go with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad split it from him. So that was an aspect of the fall of the nation. Again, the same occurred in 1975 to some degree. But Malcolm didn't have a lot of people with him when he left, only a few followers. And the Elijah Muhammad didn't go down into the tubes. And the people who he had mentioned, Malcolm, in the interview, didn't leave him by the masses and go follow Malcolm. And then even in the interview, Malcolm said that people in Chicago already knew these things about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's domestic life. He's going back to 58, 59. He learns about it in 63. So these people in Chicago know. You don't, you're in New York, and we have Savior's Day conventions every year in those 5 years. So we're going to jump ship and go follow you. They would have did that in the late 50s, but you didn't know anything about it. See, so that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of holes in what is being conveyed. But I'm not here to beat up on Malcolm. I'm just here to bring some reasoning to what he is saying in that clip. Reasoning into looking at some of the gaps. But the point I was making in this sentence is that the Elijah Muhammad didn't fall off a cliff. The nation didn't plunge into financial ruin. The nation, in fact, increased and became very popular to the point, as I'm going to say here later, where President Nixon wanted to offer some kind of help to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that the Elijah Muhammad did not take, because it came, with conditions attached to it that no self-respecting person would accept. Now, in the response to Malcolm X's false condemnation, let us carefully consider the utility of the term secretary as it relates to the domestic life. The word comes from the Latin secretarius, which means confidential officer. Most dictionaries offer very weak definitions of secretary, such as a person employed to handle correspondence and do routine work in a business office, usually involving dictation, typing, filing, and the like. 2, an officer of the state charged with the superintendence and management of a particular department of government as a member of the president's cabinet, such as the Secretary of Treasury. Now, in the term secretary is the complete word secret. By melding these definitions, we can see that a secretary is involved in administrating, superintending, and managing confidential affairs or matters, in this case, of the Messiah's labor. Would it not be in the best interest of a man to have his wife as his secretary? Just think about it. You got secrets you want to hold to yourself. Why not? I mean, wouldn't a wife be the best person in this case? Because now she has a vested interest in protecting, what is being built and what is established. She understands it, in this case, from a spiritual in more depth. So the secretaries did not only do typing and all of the other chores a secretary does, they're being taught a profound wisdom. As we could see that, as we saw in 10:10:15, that later would lead to the continuation of the Nation of Islam, not only through the offspring produced, in this case by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, but also in what each wife is charged to do, and again, fulfilling the messianic aspect of the labor assigned to her. We saw that and we witnessed that in Mother Tainetta Muhammad, as the Honorable Louis Farrakhan brought up. Now, some of you, of course, are going to have to do some more studying in order to catch up, but you won't have to do much. Now, the wives of the Messiah, to varying degrees, are executors and superintendents of his will and word. Therefore, it should come as no surprise that Satan's most sinister attack against the Messiah is through his domestic life. Maligning a man's family undermines the fortress that protects his intimate and personal affairs. The satanic leaders' chance of success, as they see it, is to create scandal regarding the Messiah's personal life. They want to liquidate him of his family, followers, public support, assets, and ultimately his life. We must remember that the Messiah's enemies are not merely ignorant so-called Negroes or misguided so-called white supremacist groups. His enemies are the satanic leaders that control world governments and national and international criminal organizations masquerading as government agencies. Did you hear that? These evil entities are highly sophisticated in their ability to disrupt and destroy people and organizations. Their sophistication, however, is child's play to Allah. How is it child's play to Allah? The sophistication where you see the U.S. government undermining whole countries. Well, it could be child's play if we just abide by a few rules. Bring me actual facts. Satan, I'm not going to go for your hokey doke. I want actual facts. You're not going to present this whole dog and pony show through your mass media and bring in so-called imps, black or white, so-called experts on the Nation of Islam, who's degreed in your world and wear your slave master's name, or even, people who have Muslim names who may be just dissatisfied. We want actual facts. But regardless of the actual facts, the domestic life can be defended and is being defended by the grace of Allah. Now, notwithstanding, the Messiah is not careless in his actions. He calculates the moves of the satanic leaders from whence they know not. The salvation of his people is at stake. In light of this, it makes sense that some of the Messiah's wives would function as secretaries. Again, that makes absolute sense. Now, in addition, in our daily ventures in the workforce, we see co-workers marry each other, right? We see attorneys marry their clients. We see doctors marry their patients. Relationships are formed through human endeavors that bring people together. This is the natural course of life. People of the same faith also marry each other. This is referred to as being evenly yoked. Both men and women of faith want to share their lives with men and women of the same faith. Faith is at the center of their unions. This is what binds them. On the other hand, those who meet their mates in bars, clubs, and speakeasies usually have fleeting relationships because the social environment in which they met supported and encouraged those kinds of encounters. The quest to have sexual intercourse is usually the only objective for their wanting to get together in the first place. Now, regardless of the ages of the Messiah's wives, their value and importance are rooted in their devotion to the cause of God, not to the drink that they had at the bar. Again, in any society, we find older women marrying younger men and older men marrying younger women. So I have a subsection called Bringing About Ease, and I'm going to read a little bit of this. There is no doubt that each of the Messiah's wives bring extraordinary value to the advancement of the Messianic mission. That's what they're there for. That's what the marriages are all about. At the root of it and at the end of the day, that is why Allah orchestrated the domestic life of the Messiah. Of course, the evildoers, when they attack, they won't mention that. They never do. And they never will. His responsibilities include helping them realize and express their God-given potential. As such, he serves them. Each relationship is reciprocal and therefore essential to everyone's growth and development. This aspect of the domestic life is often overlooked, yet it is vitally important. Let us go deeper. Given that a nation can rise no higher than its woman, the kingdom of Allah is not only built to ensure the growth and exaltation of women, but it is also developed by and through women. Not like you have in this world, where the Caucasian male wants to dominate the whole planet and put everybody in slavery, including his own woman, and has done such. Among the Messiah's most profound responsibilities is to assist Allah in bringing forth the leadership qualities within women. So in many respects, he serves women. There's much more I can say on that, but I think that point is pertinent, and I believe we can understand that. As such, women may be considered more important than the Messiah in the eyes of Allah, in that the Messiah exists in part to ensure the protection, reformation, and elevation of women. So if the Honorable Muhammad says 75% of his work is with the woman, you know, why was he raised up from God? A messenger is raised up to serve the people. So if he doesn't do his work, then he is not serving the people. So when I make a statement concerning that women are more important than the Messiah, that's only saying that he exists to elevate women to their proper place. What man is going to say that? What minister would ever say that? Not any in this world, and you all know that. So let me continue on. This is a very delicate viewpoint which is missing from Christian and Jewish religious writings. Women are not even factored into their dogma. So you have some churches that don't even allow women to preach. You have some Jewish organizations that don't even allow women to study the Torah. But here's the Messiah existing to elevate women to establish God's kingdom. Now, so in Surah 58, verse 9 and 10, it says, O you who believe, when you confer together in private, give not to each other counsel of sin and revolt and disobedience to the messenger, but give to each other counsel and goodness and observance of duty, and keep your duty to Allah, to whom you will be gathered together. Secret counsels are only of the devil, that he may cause to grieve those who believe, and he can hurt them not except with Allah's permission. And on Allah let the believers rely. Now, I brought up this particular verse because when we hear Malcolm X and Wafiuddin Muhammad at that time meddling in the affairs of the Elijah Muhammad's domestic life, these are secret counsels. These are secret counsels. And as we learn from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in his meeting with Malcolm X, Malcolm wanting to meet with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan at that time to share with him what he had learned from Wallace D. Muhammad at the time. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan said, well, I'm going to write the Honorable Elijah Muhammad on this. Malcolm said he did as well. But there's some other things that went on. But Malcolm, again, knew and believed that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was the fulfillment of these prophecies, as long as he taught them for the 11 years before he ran into some difficulty in his own trial. And we're going to talk about that momentarily. But the point that I'm making is that, again, going back to Samson in Judges 14, verse 8, he said, if you had not plowed with my heifer, ye would not have found my riddle. Meaning that now agents come into meddling in the affairs of the Messiah by trying to weaken the women, his wives, and shake their faith. And some of those who believe do that. So Malcolm's intent was that. Wafiuddin's intent at that time was that. The U.S. government's was that and is that. And some believers are like that as well, even today. Now, in this verse, I have written something. Again, we're moving pretty succinctly, but I just need to share some of these areas with you. This is not a normal, has not been a hooping and hollering message. None of them have been. So we're intelligent people, we're scientists, and I'm going to treat you like you're a scientist. If you need to have your emotions aroused, then you can go to Reverend Chickenfoot, and I'm sure with the drums playing, that can be accomplished. Then you can come back here and put on your thinking cap, which we should have on all the time anyway. God gave us a brain to think through. We can't now look at religion or our spiritual development and now we want to become, emotionally charged in that area. But when we're trying to pay our bills, we're not doing somersaults. We want to know what we've earned and with that check, where it's going to be placed. But when it comes to God, all science goes out the window? Hell no. We're scientists all the time. Otherwise, why have a brain? Now, experiences that test our faith is from this book. And it's in chapter 5, titled Study Guide 18, Part 1. Experiences that test our faith no doubt cause discomfort. This is what makes them determining factors of the state and quality of one's faith, which ultimately affects one's fate. Through trials, we are afforded the opportunity to know whether our belief in Allah is genuine. Our confidence is boosted when we meet and overcome the challenges. We gain more strength and determination. This is why trials are for us and not necessarily for Allah. Pain naturally causes a person to reflect on the events and circumstances that led to that pain, whether that pain is physical or emotional. We possess an innate desire to gain enough information to understand the reality of the pain we are experiencing. This is part of the process of going through a trial. Now, I don't have what I'm about to say written here, but you have a trial where you are a wife, a spouse. You keep that secret, and you get persecuted, so-called, for it. You get put out of the society because now everyone thinks that you fornicated, and you have a child, and your life is different. It's isolated a bit. That's a heavy trial. And then you have people like Malcolm or Al-Fudin and others who don't make it easier for you. So now you begin in that pain to lose faith, and also you may take on a sense of resentment. I resent having had my life turn out this way. Because once faith is gone, these other things show up. Resentment, scorn, even treachery. But again, who's around you? People who are going to support and buttress your decision? Who will say, it's here, it's in the book. You'll be fine, honey. What can I do to help you? We don't do those things too easily. So that person has to fight off resentment and then rebellion through treachery. And the United States government knows that. This is why they attack the domestic life. We are always tried by what we believe. And God asks us to give all to Him. And for some, their journey is a little bit different. It's more intense. So the wives of the Messiah, they're great women. And they are not to be judged or mocked or scorned. They're to be respected and held in high regard. Now, so there's no such thing as blind faith. Faith is supported in part by knowledge and intelligence. A believer can perceive a trial in the broader context of his or her journey in faith. All trials are part of our journey in faith, generally. There are also opportunities to place trials in a narrow context, especially those trials associated with specific divine commands. Nonetheless, it all begins with seeking refuge in Allah in the right spirit and asking the proper questions. This is an aspect of faith. In Hebrews 11, verse 1, it states, "Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things unseen." Faith is an activity, a presence. It is not passive. Hoping and seeking evidence of things that are unclear are not emotional activities. We become scientists and researchers to support our quest to maintain faith. Meditation and a good attitude also helps our efforts to search through the context to find the evidence, even proof that strengthens our faith. This increases our hope in Allah. So, the other day somebody shared with me what they thought was a correction given to me by something the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said a few days ago. Someone who knows what I'm doing and, my function. Well, you're hearing, first of all, I didn't see it that way because I know I'm directly guided. Not that I can make mistakes, but I'm directed and guided. Well, I have a larger context. As the Honorable Louis Farrakhan said, they put a sound bite of his and then try to interpret the sound bite, but they don't put the context. What he said before that and what he said after that. So it's a sound bite And of course, I give my beloved brother who said that more respect than that. He didn't use a sound bite, just his own perception. But my context for what Allah has guided me to do is over since 1998. That's a huge context. And for the last 2 years, in somewhat of an isolation, in what Allah is doing for me every moment that I'm awake, and what I know of my intimate relationship with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So I have a much broader context to determine what is being said and how I'm to receive it. That's the point that I'm making. So every woman who is a wife of the Messiah, that's a challenge. This is what I meant by, in faith is an activity. You can't crawl up into a closet and say, I believe, I believe, I believe, I believe. No, this not happened to me. I believe, I believe, I believe. You could say that if you want to, but it's better to do a walk down memory lane. Take all the dots you got over here and connect them. And then when somebody comes to you with some BS, then you could say that's BS and get the hell out of my face. Or you could take what you think is valuable and add to help your faith. But the onus is on the individual to walk down that path of connecting dots, crossing T's, and dotting I's. And we all have a larger context to do that than those who come before us do. That's the point that I'm making. Now, so I'm going to end it at that point. There's a few things I'm going to cover, but I'll wait till later on. Now, here's a clip, again from Malcolm, on the same message or the same interview he had with the white boy, where he was talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's wives. So listen to this.
Minister Malcolm, when you broke with Elijah Muhammad back in March, you said it was because the black Muslims were too narrowly sectarian and inhibited, and because Elijah Muhammad had become blindly jealous of you and the personal following you had gathered.
Mm-hmm. But I said the first part, but the last part, I didn't say that Elijah Muhammad himself had become blindly jealous. I mentioned that it was his family and the officials in Chicago. Everything that I said always was designed to protect Mr. Muhammad himself, primarily because the image that he had created was the image that enabled his followers to remain strong in faith and things of that sort, and I didn't want to see any adverse effect or negative result develop in the faith of all of his followers.
Mm-hmm.
I want to spend some time on this point because I believe, Malcolm, that he initially was feeling some kind of way about being silenced from the media. He wasn't put out the mosque. From what I understand, he could still attend meetings and do some other things. He just could not teach for the number of days the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had silenced him. Now, I can't say all that happened. I know the history of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as he shared with us. And some of the people that I have known in the Nation of Islam for 35 years. Malcolm mentioned the laborers in Chicago and the officials. That has been a problem in our nation. And in any organization, when you have those who are managing things, as we say, at the top level, although Allah in His Christ is the top level. The National Council of the Nation of Islam, that's not the top level. We work in the cause of Allah, and most of them would agree with that. But we're coming up, brothers and sisters, out of a dead state. So when we look at challenges taking place in the lives of those that Allah are working with, then in other words, do we help people come along and turn out for the better? I mean, sometimes in our negative discourse and throwing rocks and stones, then that may offer a help because we're supposed to be strong enough to overcome that. So God does set up situations where you won't have everybody to give you a pat on the back to say you're okay. You'll have those who want to rip your daggone heart out. Those who want to throw stones and undermine you and see you go all the way down the tubes because they're envious and jealous. We have people like that, and God allows that to happen to us. So I'm sure Malcolm received a whole bunch of innuendos, of lies, of scorn, of everything. And then you're looking for help. Somebody to rise up and be on your side. And when you don't get the help, you blame the man of God. So now you attack him. I'm just telling you what I know from what Allah has shared with me. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, in his rise in the Nation of Islam, in his labor, he received many complaints from believers in New York, from believers in New York, from believers in New York. So don't act like our crap don't stink. And from Chicago, he said it himself. Took him a while to get over the pain of his labor and then the unwarranted attacks against him by officials that don't like to see other people shine. Now, I'm not saying anybody in Chicago today is like that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just telling you the history. But God is not going to throw us a lifeline from that. We got to go through our trials and rise up. So when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was going through his, in many respects, the Elijah Muhammad, told him, I'm not going to give you the full context of all the words that was exchanged, but if you want a board to hold the foundation of a house, if the board is not strong enough and breaks, you throw that board away and go get yourself another board. Meaning that somebody has to be able to withstand that kind of pressure. And some of us, sometimes we're not able to do that. We're not built that way, or maybe we just don't understand at that point in time. So Malcolm told the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in his face, I wish it were you being an example for me rather than me being an example for you. What is the example? That I have become embittered in many respects and wounded, I think, beyond repair by all the slander coming my way. There was a rumor that went around, said that, there's a hypocrite coming that'll make Malcolm X's hypocrisy look like child's play. They tried to pin that on the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in the Nation of Islam, and an innuendo rumor that involved some of the ministers who did not like him being as successful as he was. So, do we do that today? That's what we're getting down to. Are we any different than the ones who went before us? Are we laden with envy and jealousy, where we put lies out against people, where we're not honest because we think we're going to lose something? Most of those who did those things in the early 70s, at the 1975 Saviors Day Convention, they're not even alive anymore. Did many great things. And we're not taking anything from anybody's sacrifice. I'm certainly not doing that. We're just going to something that is ugly in our hearts, that disease that Allah talks about, that with the teaching and being cognizant of it, we can overcome. So Malcolm was attacked. The Honorable Minister, by the laborers and officials, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was attacked. They wanted to peel them away from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad because he showed them favor in the work. Some of us don't want the Honorable Louis Farrakhan to give nobody an accolade. So the first chance that we get, we're, throwing darts at them. Soon as something happens that we can say maybe a little negative, and that's just not in the Nation of Islam, that's in all organizations. We have that disease among us. It's a disease that's born in us, that not born in us as born in us, is a disease of the heart. and is magnified in a society that makes it honorable to put lies out like that. So the scriptures of the Holy Quran says this world makes evil fair seeming. So for many people, it's all right to lie on somebody and let the lie go. Let a lie stay there for as long as it can give life. I mean, for as long as it can be alive. Few people will come and uproot the lie. So, I've had seen that witness with Brother Khalid as well. I've been around 35 years, and I knew Brother Khalid, and I'm just going to say this, I don't give a damn what anybody think. I'm going to say what God put on my heart to say because I know it's right, even if you don't. Man is serving the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He had his own mind. So he would, challenge the Honorable Louis Farrakhan in some respects, but Khalid was a lover of black people. Eventually he wanted to do things his own way. But that was not without being attacked, verbally, being innuendoed and having darts thrown at you from so-called people who were around him, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I'm telling you what I know. And some of those who were officials and still are. So Khalid, I'm just, feeling him, looking around thinking the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gonna throw him a lifeline, gonna bail him out. So that don't happen. So you resent the man. Now you blaming him for your being scorned and mocked by envious and jealous people that may not even be able to tie your damn shoe. And even if they can or even are better, so damn what? You still got to do the job God put on your heart to do, but you can't go against the man of God. So you go blame the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan because he didn't come and help you in your trial. He didn't call back the wolves. Would they have retracted or retreated anyway? Do wolves do that? So why waste his time? If you're a man among men, then you do the best you can. And the best he could do and wanted to do was to start something, re-enliven the Panther organization, which was a good work and remains that way. Now, I have a dear friend, Brother Abdul Ali Muhammad. I don't even claim to know everything about him. And what I'm about to say is no judgment against him. But I know he was attacked. I was there as a witness in a massive meeting. And I take my hat off to him. He handled that meeting really well. I would have said, well, since you want to talk like that, then get your behind up. Let's go in the back room. We'll settle it that way. See, some of us talk a lot because we think our position insulates us. So we can say anything we want to say, even if it's nasty, because I'm so-and-so. I'm such a such. And nobody stands up to say, no, you're wrong. I don't give a damn who father you or son you are. You damn wrong. We just let it go because we got some royal family mess up in our minds. But God ain't judging that. Because there's a tombstone waiting for us too. It applies to the church. I credit Dr. Aleem. And even to this day, you got people like that who are just ready to use their so-called authority to mash on somebody that's trying to do something good because they misunderstand them. So we go back to acting like sheer niggas. We're in the process of being cleaned. And I know that. I just want us to realize that we play a role in crucifying our own leaders because we don't let truth and actual fact, we don't uphold that to its height. So with that said, I want us to look at this clip from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, which is going to be really important as we are moving now from 10:10:15. Listen.
Our subject deals with truth and falsehood. There can never be unity, peace, and love among us as long as lies are between us. To say that we are brothers, and we are, but to make brotherhood a reality, lies can never be between the brothers or the sisters or in the marriage or in the family. Truth is the basis of unity. Truth is the basis of harmony. Truth is the basis of power. Lies destroy unity. Lies destroy peace and harmony. Lies destroy growth and development. Lies bring about the death of the marriage, the death of the family, the death of the unity, the death and destruction of a people. This is why lies are so detrimental. And this is why we as a people have to learn all over again the value of the truth and the value of being truthful one to the other.
Now, that's rich, very rich, because when it comes to this world, what is involved in this world that is a lie that we hold dearly to, and what is the truth that we won't accept? People have this concept of operational unity. What the hell is that? Operational unity. Meaning that I could believe a lie, you could believe the truth, and we can accomplish something as a people. That's BS social scientist madness. How we got operational unity? We don't even have unity when you have lies persistent. Lies in religion. Lies in how we view God. If there's one religion, because there is one type of kidney, one type of liver, and no matter what you say you believe as a Christian, if I need a kidney and yours match as a Muslim, I can use your kidney, which shows us we're just clowning around, and vice versa. So do we let lies persist? Because we have an interest, an ego interest in it. So we just let lies, we're not gonna come down to the sure truth. We'll just let lies exist because we don't want to rattle nobody's religion. We don't want to rattle nobody's social perspective. No, the truth is present, and if we are committed to digging for that truth, we can all come to the truth. There's some who won't believe regardless. Well, that's just them. They're just disbelievers. But not to pursue the truth and respect the truth, that's a damn shame. So from a world standpoint of this satanic world and what its purpose is, and we can see it, death, destruction everywhere. We know this is not a world that's liked by God. Well, how much do we subscribe to concepts of this world, which we know are rooted in lies? Preachers running for political office. Then we go down to the world of religion. Where's the lie? Plenty of them. How many do we subscribe to and want to hold on to? Black people, what's been done to us? We're in our slave master's name. Is it true that your name Johnny Jones? From the Jones plantation of Alabama? Oh, but you're not going to turn that lie around. You just going to continue to give birth to children bearing your slave master's name. Just think on that. And then we come down to family, letting lies persist. Nobody wants to face the truth and come up and say, no, that's a lie. Prove to me what you're saying is the truth. I'll even go back to this book. You got people who said that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan was not with this book. Have you, as a believer, asked the one who said that to show you proof? Hell no, you haven't. We let lies persist. There's no unity, not just in this, but other areas, that we just let lies go along. So no, we are not who we think we are. We're coming up out of the grave. But let us not act like we're something that we're not. We let lies persist. Instead of saying, wait a minute, we can't move no further until we solve this lie. Because I don't want you in front of my my face and there's a lie hovering over you. You come clean with that damn lie, or you get the hell away from me. I'm not going to even let you think you could walk around like a peacock with a lie hovering over me and what I'm trying to be a part of. Hell no. That won't happen. You come clean. Or I'll help get you the hell out of here my damn self. But we don't have people that think like that. Too much to be found. So we clap when the Honorable Louis Farrakhan speaking truth to power. And he's forced by his love for us and by the command of Allah to rise up and say things that nobody wants to say, because people want to let the lie go and cover the lie. Because you have to be courageous to stand up and confront a lie and a liar. And most people ain't built that way nowadays, but want to be part of the 10,000. You know, we got a long way to clean up before that happens. So, it's a positive. Now, he said, there can never be unity among us as long as lies persist. So the instruction that I would give to all of us, if you believe a lie is persisting in your home, bring it up and solve it. You believe a lie is persisting in your church, your mosque, then you bring it up. That shows courage. No courage standing on a police car that's parked. That's our assignment. Let's go hunt down the lies and bring those who are lying to come clean and resolve it. Because if we don't, then you will see a dissipation like you have never seen before. And Allah will get rid of those who claim belief in whatever religion and bring in true believers, and he's doing that now. So now we're going to just end that part. You can see the whole video if you want to. Very powerful, of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the power of the lie and the power of the truth. Now I'm going to end on this note, some house cleaning instructions, or not house cleaning, but some more instructions. Again, you know, you're going to hear me say that we need this book, The Restricted Law, because it talks about lies, rules of conduct, no lying, speak the truth regardless of the circumstances, the actual facts. Well, I heard what you said, brother. And that may have been an actual fact that day. But I heard what brother said happened after that. That seems to be actual facts. You have something coming after this? Or you go hold on to something that happened prior to the new facts? Bring some new facts. Right? So in here, he says, no lying given to us, the restrictive law, guiding rules of conduct. No lying. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan writes, if we were to put everybody out of the mosque who lied, how many of us would be in the mosque? We'd go in the mosque and there would be nobody to preach because the minister would be gone, the captain would be gone, the secretary would be gone, everybody gone. Is he lying? You know he's not lying. The mosque empty. Why? Everybody tells a lie. So he goes on to talk about, speak the truth regardless of the circumstances. That he writes, that's very difficult to do. I mean, I'm sure you found that out. You get into a circumstances and you don't want to say the truth. I've been like that. If somebody gave me something to read and I've got so much reading to do and here they come, minister, did you read my letter? Because I didn't want to hurt their feelings, I told them, oh yeah, I read it, hoping that they wouldn't ask me what was in it. But some of you just fall in love with writing me the epistle Paul, and you wonder, why didn't I get an answer? Now, he continues to talk about that, but the gist of this point was, we can't lie. It's difficult to speak the truth regardless of the circumstances. So we have this for those women and men who want to be the 10,000. Now, the FBI agents who will be going on the website to register their 5,000 agents of the 10,000 agents on the website for the 10,000, you'll need to read this too. But the 10,000 don't happen that way. God is responsible for bringing along the 10,000. They will be trained according to what is being, given now. But we got to do something to earn the part of the 10,000 that are with the Messiah. How are the angels with the Messiah? And they go through righteous conduct and train. They're divine spiritual beings, men and women of great faith and great knowledge. The 10,000 are 10,000 angels that come with Christ. He heads them. So you ain't no angel unless you are coming under the restrictive law and shaping your conduct according to the conduct of God. That goes first before you get any other kind of training. Speak the truth, represent righteousness. And then God will choose you and pull you out. You cannot get in front of the Messiah with a database filled with 3,000 or 4,000 FBI agents. That's really laughing at us. How to eat to live. We cannot change our behavior if we eating hog moss, chitlins, or anything that moves. Synthetic foods, GMO foods, eating poor. He said that, that this book, How to Eat to Live, is divine guidance, one of the two of the greatest guidance that God brought to us in the person of Master Farrakhan Muhammad. So it is essential aspect of who we are. Many of us have just thrown this book right over our backs. Now we're walking around with big guts. So we're not going to morph the teaching to accommodate our weakness. Let us encourage each other to stand strong on the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. All of it, the best way we can. Now, I have some books here, and I have to just say this. Now, of course, when a white boy says something, is believable. So the Honorable Farrakhan knows that. I know that. Many of us know that. He has said no vaccines since the late 70s. That's why I started teaching on against vaccines. He said no vaccines months ago, years ago. So what Robert Kennedy Jr. is doing is not a bad thing. He's showing where this particular vaccine has caused autism. And he has a book. He went to Brother Minister Tony, and that's the right thing to do when you're not being heard. And we do want to get the political system involved in it. But the political system is built off money. Vaccines predates the political system that we see here. It is the #1 means of making substandard human beings by messing up the brain, and has been that way prior to what Robert Kennedy Jr. revealed. So I have some books that I have written that did not make it to the for whatever reason, but you can access the book and some chapters from the book on my website. It did access the Final Call because I wrote some articles in the Final Call. But here's a book called The Case Against Hepatitis B Vaccination. That's the first vaccine given to babies when they're pulled out of the mother's womb, even before sometimes they get breast milk. Now, I have to say this. We covered some subjects, but this is a vaccine you don't want to happen because you will have an autistic child. Because that vaccine does contain mercury, but other vaccines contain aluminum. So mercury ain't just the big deal. Aluminum is neurotoxic. Dr. Aleem and I, we did something on vaccines, and Dr. Aleem years ago passed a moratorium for the Nation of Islam against vaccines. I'm not sure if that was even brought up or not. But all I'm saying is that, there's a context of what has been done in terms of the Nation of Islam as we approach vaccines. And we are within our right to look at the fuller context. Now, I can't say what Robert Kennedy Jr. knows, but he got to know aluminum is in vaccines. He has to know polysorbate 80, which causes infertility. Formaldehyde is in most vaccines, so it's just not mercury. We don't need our children to take these. So if a woman is getting having a baby and somebody tries to administer this vaccine, here's what's going to happen. The doctor's going to swear that if you don't take the vaccine, your child's going to die. So all those people who saying no vaccines, when you get in the grind and the nurse and doctors got you hemmed up, you'll succumb, because we don't take the real knowledge and make it part of how we decide. We may not read, in other words, what I'm saying and get the point. So I have received phone calls from people while the woman was in labor, putting me on a loudspeaker, telling her what the doctor said and how I'm not a physician, but neither is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, neither is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, but God has given us a teaching that goes to the root of life. So I don't need to be no physician to know that mercury, formaldehyde, and polysorbate 80 will kill us. And you don't either. Any chemistry book will tell you that. Now, I have 2 volumes called Against Compulsory Vaccination. Are you trying to sell these books, Brother Kareem? No. I'm just showing you what's in them. Well, HPV vaccine is being administered to girls in puberty. I talk about why would you administer a vaccine that goes into the reproductive system when a girl's in puberty, because you don't want her to have children. That's why. So we have Gardasil and Silverex out there. And now they have a new thing where if a woman is diagnosed with having HPV, human papillomavirus, then that woman is advised to maybe have her uterus removed or something that's mind-boggling. But since she don't have the truth, she goes along, and that's another way of decreasing the ability of women to give birth by conjuring up a virus, a disease that don't even exist, putting a whole dog and pony show around it, creating a vaccine, and now forcing it through the school system to be administered, or else that child or else that girl may not be admitted into school. So people are being forced to give up their right or their ability to have children. Now, this book talks about the scores of women that have had their reproductive system upset and destroyed and made infertile. So what about this? We gonna march on the CDC for this? The CDC ain't going no damn where. We gotta do due diligence, but it's through knowledge. But again, you know, this is a book for our benefit. It's research. It gives a good stance of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But maybe there's some people who don't care. So if you don't care for me, then this is not a book you would want other people to have. I'm just making it plain. But it's a good book, the best book out on the market on that subject, because it's rooted in the divine teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This is the second volume. You don't even need another book after you read this. I'm not going to say too much more on that. But I do have this quote in here: a long train of abuses and usurpations. A long train of abuses and usurpations, which is a quote from the Declarations of Independence. The fight against vaccines is 200 years old. So I'm talking about and having research about those who advocated against vaccines going all the way back to the late 1700s, early 1800s, and all of the legal discourse that took place. Going all the way up into the 21st century, even to this day, it hasn't gone anywhere. And no marching is going to have it go anywhere. It's education and linking on to the Messiah's words, his guidance. So we don't take vaccines from these United States of America. And that's been the gist of what we've been doing for the last 15 to 16 to 20 years. So I have chapters in this whole book on the hepatitis B vaccine that's given at birth. You can download on my website free of charge if you choose to. So you can, save your baby from being made, into an autistic child or, even worse. So that's what we have. That's some instructions for you, for us, in helping us to just move along where Allah wants us to be. So may Allah continue to bless each and every one of you. Assalamu alaikum.